They told me I was a pillar of the company, right before they kicked me out the door. Funny how fast 20 years turns into a line item on someone else's spreadsheet. My name is Mike Delaney. I'm 62 years old. I was head of maintenance and safety at the Fairlane manufacturing plant, just outside Joliet, Illinois. The job didn't make headlines, but it mattered. I kept that place running clean. No fatalities, no fires, no lawsuits. 2 decades of doing things the right way, even when it wasn't the easy way. I started back when the floor still smelled like oil and hot steel, when you earned respect with your hands, not hashtags. When people who clocked in at 6 a.m. actually knew how to fix something. I built my reputation on one rule. If it isn't safe, it doesn't run. Period. We had a system. Not flashy, not fancy, just solid. The boilers were old but well kept. The pressure valves had redundancies. Everyone from janitors to junior techs knew how to handle a lockout. If a machine even looked off, my guys flagged it before it got dangerous. Then came Bryce, Vice President of Operations, fresh out of Silicon Valley, 33. Smelled like lemon kombucha and wore white sneakers to the floor. First thing he said to me was, "Mike, you're a legend, but we're pivoting to a leaner model, less overhead, more automation." I should have known. First it was the little things, removing printed logs in favor of an app, replacing hands-on training with QR codes taped to machines. Then the budget adjustments started. My requests for backup parts got denied. Safety drills were paused to free up more production time. My guys started getting twitchy. One got let go for low adaptability. He'd only been there 17 years. I voiced my concerns, in writing, in meetings, hell, even in the break room over burnt coffee. Every time Bryce gave me that plastic smile and said, "Appreciate the feedback, but we need to evolve." Evolve, right. He started showing up on the floor with consultants, people who'd never worn a hard hat in their lives, nodding along while he pitched ideas like remote monitoring, AI inspection tools, and something he called dynamic redundancy. I asked him what that even meant. He blinked like a screensaver and changed the subject. Then came the meeting. Friday, 4:30 p.m. Classic corporate ambush hour. I was told to report to HR for a quick alignment check. I walked in to find Bryce already seated, flanked by 2 suits I'd never met. One had a laptop open. The other slid a folder across the table like he was serving divorce papers. "Mike," Bryce said, grinning like he just closed a deal on a Tesla. "We've decided to restructure leadership in the maintenance division." I didn't say a word, just looked at him. "You've been an incredible asset," he continued, "but from a cost efficiency standpoint, well, we can hire 3 younger guys for your salary, and they won't need coffee breaks or back surgery." He actually chuckled at his own joke. I stared at him for a long moment, not angry, not shocked, just done. Like watching someone light a match in a fireworks factory and call it innovation. I stood up. No speeches, no outbursts, just took the folder, nodded to the suits, and walked out. Past the lockers, the floor, the control panel with my initials etched into the back plate, out the side door, and into the parking lot. The sun was going down. I remember that. Sky lit up like metal under a welder's torch. I started the truck, hands steady, not because it didn't hurt, but because I already knew what came next. They'd find out. They always do. They put out a press release the following Monday. Fairlane Manufacturing welcomes next-gen maintenance leadership team. Big photo attached, 3 fresh-faced kids, all smiles and clean polos, standing in front of equipment they probably couldn't name without Google. They replaced me with a committee, said it was part of a decentralized agility initiative. What that meant in practice was no one had a clue who was in charge of what, but everyone had a title and a tablet. The new leads were straight out of trade school. No real floor time, no grease under their nails. First thing they did was change the maintenance log system from hard copy to digital only, then forgot to sync the new app with the central database. For 2 weeks, the system showed everything as green, while 2 machines were leaking hydraulic fluid like busted arteries. No one caught it, not until one of the welders slipped and cracked a rib. I didn't say anything. Wasn't my job anymore. Instead, I sanded down a maple slab in my garage and built a bench for the porch. Took long walks around the lake before the morning traffic kicked in. Picked up some side work fixing up old lawnmowers for neighbors who remembered when machines had parts you could actually reach. But the texts kept coming. First from Dan, ran second shift for 12 years. Bro, they skipped the monthly drill, again. Whole team's pissed. Then from Laura in procurement. Is it true we're not replacing the backup generator this quarter? I thought that was mandatory. Then from Reggie. System pressure dropped during third shift. No one noticed till alarms started. Bryce says it's fine. You believe that? I didn't answer most of them. What was I going to say? I warned them, repeatedly. But warning a corporate ladder climber like Bryce was like putting a safety label on a stick of dynamite. They don't care until it blows. One night, I was flipping through channels and landed on an old Western, John Wayne, black and white grit. He said something like, "A man's gotta have a code." I remember sitting there, staring at the screen like it was preaching. I had one, for years. Show up early, know your systems, protect your people. And if something didn't look right, shut it down before someone bled. Problem was that code doesn't mean much to people who only speak in buzzwords and quarterly projections. To them, loyalty's just another inefficiency, another legacy system to be replaced. The new crew put up posters all over the floor. Think lean, work smart. One had a cartoon robot giving a thumbs up. I heard they took down the frame certificate from our 10-year injury-free milestone to make room for it. It stung more than I expected. I didn't want a parade, but it would have been nice if someone, anyone, acknowledged what we built, not the equipment, the culture, a crew that gave a damn, that watched out for each other, that took pride in walking out each day with every finger and limb still attached. Now, it was a game of passing blame and logging metrics. Click a box, ignore the gut feeling. Because the app didn't say there was a problem, so there must not be one. One of the newer hires quit mid-shift, walked off the floor after being told to deprioritize a leak in the compressor line because a regional director was visiting and the cleanup crew made the place look messy. That line had ruptured before, back in 2008. We reinforced it, upgraded the seals, added a manual release. I doubt the kids even knew it had a history. The floor supervisor resigned not long after. No warning, just turned in his badge and left. I wasn't surprised. He'd been doing the job of 4 people and getting blamed for everything short of weather delays. I kept to myself. Kept building things with my hands. That part never left. I liked the quiet hum of a sander more than the corporate noise anyway. But under it all, I could feel something coiling. They thought they could replace decades of field experience with enthusiasm and Wi-Fi. They thought cutting corners wouldn't cut back. They thought I was gone for good. But I've seen how this story ends, and I knew they weren't ready for it. The call came at 11:42 p.m. Not to me. God, no. I was long off the books. But that's when it happened. Second shift. Pressure valve gave out. Superheated steam hit a line tech on his left arm. First-degree burns. Lucky it wasn't worse. Damn lucky. They kept it quiet. No internal memo, no OSHA notification, just a quiet shuffle. Sent the kid home with a burn cream packet and a promise it'd be handled. Handled, my ass. I heard about it the next day from Dan. He still worked swing shift. Still texted like we were back in the trenches together. Valve 6 blew. New crew blamed operator error. Kid's arm got cooked. They're sweeping it. I read that message 3 times. Steam injuries don't happen when systems are maintained. They happen when you're too cheap or too proud to check your damn gauges. Turns out they hadn't run a full inspection on the pressure assembly since I left. No torque tests, no seal swaps, nothing. Just click-through checklists and digital signatures. One of the new guys even marked the system green the morning before the failure. Probably didn't even know what he was looking at. Then I saw the log. Laura from procurement forwarded me a screenshot. "Figured you'd want to see this," she said. It was doctored. I knew it immediately. Wrong timestamps. Maintenance signatures in the wrong order. One tech's name misspelled. Twice. If they were going to falsify records, the least they could do was spell check. That's when the anger started to settle in. Not the hot kind, the cold kind. The kind that sits low and deep, like coals that never really went out. It wasn't just the incident, it was the cover-up. The ego. The refusal to admit they were in over their heads. I paced the garage for a full hour. Thought about calling the local inspector myself. Thought about driving down to the plant just to look Bryce in the eye and say, "I told you so." But I didn't. I put down my phone, grabbed my old socket set, and started tuning the mower I'd been working on. My hands needed something to do, or I was going to drive myself crazy. A week passed, then two. The buzz around the plant went quiet, like everyone was walking on glass. Safety meetings started popping up on the schedule again. Too little, too late. Word was, Bryce had told corporate the incident was isolated and handled. And then the boiler blew. Second shift again. Same quadrant. I didn't need a text this time. I felt it before the phone even lit up. The boiler rupture wasn't small. It wasn't containable. That unit had been flagged twice before I left, but the replacement budget kept getting kicked down the road. Deferred maintenance, Bryce called it, stretching the life cycle. Well, it stretched, and it snapped. The alarm hit just after midnight. Multiple systems failed in sequence. Backup coolant didn't engage. Manual override was locked. And the three younger guys, the ones hired to replace me, not one of them knew how to force a bypass. No playbook, no protocol, just chaos. Dan was the first to call. He didn't ask how I was doing. He just said, "Mike, we've got a rupture and no one knows what the hell to do." I didn't answer. 3 more texts followed, one from a number I didn't recognize. "Mr. Delaney, this is Eric from operations. Please call. Bryce says we need help." I set the phone on the workbench. Outside, the wind had picked up, dry air, the kind that makes your knuckles split and your teeth ache if you breathe too deep. I stood there in the dark for a long while, thinking about that floor, about the guys still on it, the systems I'd built, the protocols I'd written by hand because no one else gave a damn. They thought I was outdated, too slow, too cautious, and now they were standing in the middle of a live boiler failure, praying someone like me still gave a shit. I picked up my keys. I didn't tell anyone I was coming. The phone lit up at 2:13 a.m. I let it ring. Second time, I picked it up. Didn't say anything. "Mike, it's Bryce." His voice cracked on my name. Not confident anymore. No pitch, no swagger. Just raw panic barely dressed in words. "We need your help," he said, fast and breathless. "No one knows how to bypass the main panel. The override's frozen. The failsafe didn't engage. We're locked out." I leaned back against the workbench, watching the seconds tick on the screen. "There's steam in quadrant 3. Evac was triggered, but it's not clearing. We think the auto drain's jammed, and no one can get the control line to respond. Mike, please." I let the silence stretch just long enough for him to hear it, the kind of silence that weighs more than words. "Send me the access badge," I said, "and when I show up, I'm not answering to anyone in a necktie." He agreed too fast, texted me the badge ID before I hung up. I didn't rush. Took my time changing into boots and grabbing my old jacket, the one with the stitched name patch and a busted zipper. The truck started on the first try. Of course it did. Some machines still respect people who treat them right. By the time I pulled into the south lot, I could see the blinking reds across the facility. Emergency lights. Main power had been cut. Half the parking spaces were empty. Guess a few of the newer hires decided it wasn't worth sticking around. Can't say I blame them. The front door was propped open with a folding chair. Security badge scanner was taped over, blinking red. No one inside. I stepped into a scene straight out of a training video gone wrong. Alarms still pulsed overhead. A thin layer of condensation on the walls meant the venting system was down. 2 kids sat on the stairwell, one with her head between her knees, sobbing. The other just looked at me like I'd arrived in a cape. The control room smelled like burnt wiring and stress. Backup generators were humming, but the routing panel was dark. Must have tripped the surge block. No wonder the failsafe hadn't triggered. I'd warned them that panel needed insulation upgrades 2 years ago. Bryce was there, shirt wrinkled, tie gone, eyes bloodshot and wild. "Thank God," he muttered when he saw me. I didn't answer, just walked past him. Mainline diagnostics were offline. Auto drain was frozen mid-cycle. The panel lockout code had been changed, and no one knew the master override, which, of course, wasn't digital. It was analog. Manual switch behind a welded access plate. Legacy system. Not on any schematics drawn after 2005. I knew where it was. Took me 4 minutes to strip the panel and bypass the circuit. Once I rerouted power through the backup trunk, the failsafe engaged. Drain valves hissed open. Pressure dropped. Steam started to clear. The red lights dimmed one by one. No yelling, no hero speech. Just hands doing what they've always done. Work. 45 minutes from the time I walked in, the crisis was over. I stood in the control room, gloves still on, staring at the panel. It looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I'd just gotten used to seeing things clearly. Behind me, Bryce exhaled like he'd been holding his breath since midnight. "I don't know how to thank you," he said. I turned around slowly, saw the room full of people who had never looked at me twice when I was on the payroll. Now they looked like they were seeing me for the first time. "You don't," I said. "You learn from it. Or the next time, no one comes when you call." I didn't wait for a reply, just walked past the kid still crying on the steps and nodded once. She nodded back, still shaking. Out in the parking lot, the sun hadn't come up yet. The world was quiet again. But I knew this time, it wouldn't stay quiet for long. They tried to make it disappear, not the boiler failure, that was too big to sweep, but the story behind it, the why, the decisions that led to it. They locked down internal memos, spun a PR statement about unexpected equipment fatigue, and trotted out Bryce in a clean polo to say everything was under control. It wasn't. I got the offer 3 days later, came in a crisp envelope, hand-delivered. Strategic safety consultant. Same responsibilities I had before, just stripped of authority and padded with buzzwords. Oh, and half the salary. That part was bolded. I read it once, shook my head, and sent back a note through legal. "Thanks, but no thanks. I don't work for people who treat experience like overhead." Apparently, that ruffled feathers. Didn't take long for the crew to catch wind. Dan called first. "You serious? You turned him down?" "Dead serious," I said. "Damn," he muttered. "Respect." A few days later, I got a voicemail from a local reporter. Said she'd heard rumors about the plant safety record falling apart after personnel changes. Wanted to talk. I didn't call her back right away. But I didn't delete the message either. Instead, I went to the garage and pulled out the black binder, the one I kept in my locker until the day they walked me out. Inside were 20 years of handwritten logs, notes, red flags, unofficial reports they didn't want in the system. I flipped to the last 6 months before I left. There it was, in my own damn handwriting. Boiler 3, stress crack in lower manifold. Recommend replacement, not patch. Underlined, twice. I made copies of everything, sent them to OSHA. Didn't sign my name, didn't need to. 2 weeks later, the plant shut down for a full inspection. The VP went on leave the next morning, unpaid from what I heard. Word spread like wildfire. People started showing up at my door, not media, my crew, the ones who'd stayed, the ones who'd left. Laura brought a six-pack and stood on my porch for 10 minutes before she even spoke. "You saved lives, Mike," she finally said. "You always did, but now people see it." Reggie stopped by with his kid, said he told her about me. Told her you're the reason her dad made it home every night. She wanted to say thank you. I stood there, damn near speechless. Not because I didn't appreciate it, but because I didn't think anyone remembered. I was never in it for the spotlight. I liked the background, the quiet, the machines. They don't bullshit you. They just work if you treat them right. But for once, it wasn't about just being respected. It was about being needed. The same people who replaced me with tablets and flowcharts were now quoting my logbooks, trying to reverse engineer the systems I built by instinct and sweat. Systems that didn't just prevent accidents, they saved lives. And they'd thrown all that away for a bigger bonus line. The shutdown stretched into weeks. Bryce never came back. Last I heard, he was consulting somewhere in Seattle, probably telling another crew how to streamline legacy culture. The plant reopened with a new safety director, one of mine, Melissa, bright, steady, sharp as hell. I trained her myself back in the day. She texted me on her first day with a photo. The frame certificate was back on the wall. 10 years injury-free. That hit harder than I expected. I didn't go back. Didn't need to. My work was still there, in every pressure valve, every safety drill they finally brought back, and in the people who still remembered what it looked like when the floor ran right. I wasn't just the guy who fixed things anymore. I was the reason they still ran at all. 6 months goes by fast when you're finally sleeping through the night. I don't take early calls anymore. I don't answer to anyone who uses the phrase disruption model. These days I consult on my own terms. Safety systems, equipment audits, crisis planning. Not the glamorous stuff, but the kind that keeps people alive. Small outfits mostly, family-owned shops, local plants that still believe experience matters more than buzzwords. I name my price and they pay it without flinching. They don't want shiny slides or team-building slogans. They want someone who knows when a vibration under the floor means pressure's building where it shouldn't. They want someone who won't skip the boring checks just to hit a deadline. They want someone who's seen what happens when the wrong person says, "It'll be fine." And they know I don't bluff. I don't sugarcoat. I walk in, I fix it, I walk out. That's the deal. The old plant's still standing, but it's limping. Bryce is gone, officially terminated. Not even a LinkedIn post. From what I hear, he's under review for falsifying compliance records. That alone could have buried the company if OSHA hadn't already been crawling all over them, like ants on a carcass. Two of the juniors quit within weeks of each other. One took a job with a logistics firm in Texas. The other just walked off mid-shift and never came back. Can't say I blame them. They were set up to fail, told they were brilliant, handed complex systems with no training, and thrown into fires they didn't know how to put out. It wasn't their fault, but they sure weren't ready. I heard Melissa brought back hands-on drills, reinstated the old lockout protocol, and doubled the number of mechanical inspections. Smart move. She always had a good eye for weak points, systems, and people. This morning I drove by the plant on my way to a job in Springfield. Just felt like taking the long way. The gates were open, lights were on in the admin wing, but not on the main floor. A few trucks parked in the delivery lane, idling like they weren't sure if they'd be needed. For a second, I thought about stopping, just to see. Just to walk the floor one more time, hear the machines hum, and feel the ground I used to know by heart. But I didn't. That part of my life's done. I gave them every chance, warned them more times than I can count. Not because I was trying to be difficult, but because I knew what would happen if they didn't listen. I didn't make threats. I gave them facts, years of them, written in black ink and grease, and hours no one paid me for. They fired me over coffee breaks and back surgery. I gave them something to remember, shut down protocol.